Hi, this is Jack Olmstead, GMO Free News. I'm joined today with two special guests, Keri Webber. I always have the camera on somebody else before I start this thing. I'm going to start it all over again. I do this every single time.
It's
Hi,
all
this is
right.
Hi, this is Jack Olmstead. I'm GMO Free News. Actually, let me start that again. This is Jack Olmstead, GMO Free News. I'm joined today with two special guests, Keri Webber. She's in Flint, Michigan. She's the mother from Flint. Hi, Keri. How's it going today?
Good. Thank you so much.
You got a pretty full dance card today. This is the second of three interviews.
Yes. Yes.
What what was your first interview like?
The first interview was with MSNBC this morning. It was cold, really cold.
And you were out by the river.
Yes, they didn't tell us. They did not tell me it was going to be outdoors. So I was in a dress, very chilly. But I'm
You
doing
had
it.
you have your jacket on. I see it right here. I'm on your Facebook page.
Yep.
Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
So on your Facebook page, and you're out there in your jacket
In a dress and heels.
and dressed in heels. Oh, and they just shot you
Oh,
from the
yes.
waist.
I told them had I known I would have had on the winter boots and jeans, and I mean I froze, but it was very good in that they're bringing attention to the fact this is 100,000 people that have been affected.
So what did you think of the interview?
I thought it went very well. In fact, I was, um, and it's not a slam to them. I was very surprised at how open it was, really.
Now they only give you like 30 seconds to plead your case, don't they?
It was a little longer than that. I don't know how long it was. I mean, I watched it briefly, but um, the questions were spot on, I thought.
So they wanted to know, I think the first question was, how are you dealing with the water crisis?
Yes.
So that's a good opening question. If it's good enough for MSNBC, hey, it's good enough for us.
um, is a mom not well? We can only do what we can do, and we're trying to mitigate all damage to my husband and our daughter and our dog. Um, as a community entity, I don't know. I guess some people call me community activist now. This is nothing I've ever done, ever. I'm taking, the more active I am, the less helpless I feel. So I am fighting for the rights of 100,000 people, not just my family, every family.
Now I understand that around 5 o'clock you're going to load up your van with water and go deliver it to shut-ins.
Yes,
Is
this will
that
be the fourth time we've done this.
and where are the shut-ins?
We have lists of some organizations have given us lists. Other lists are people we have found on our own or have become aware of. My daughters and I personally alone delivered 100 and oh my goodness, like 150 cases in a 2 day time span. And it was to shut-ins. It was to moms that don't have transportation, that have young children. It just anywhere we could find a need, we took the water there.
That sounds like a full-time job.
It is. I would be much better if I actually worked right now.
So Leanne, you kind of laugh at that. How did you meet Keri? How did you guys bond?
We bond over the fact that both of our children have lead poisoning. When I laugh, I'm not laughing like it's funny. It's laughing because yesterday was the 1 year anniversary for me for starting all the research and the data. And it's just, I mean, yes, that's how it is. I mean, once you start it, it consumes you.
Yes. And it has. And and thank you again to Leanne. I have learned things about water between Leanne and Mark Edwards and City Hall that I never wanted to know, but because of our situation, we have to know.
I remember our first meeting.
I do too.
We were at the town hall meeting in September when we were giving the results from Virginia Tech.
Hmm.
And Keri came up to us, and Keri had me crying my eyes out. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. And I offered to kiss Mark Edwards' feet. That's up, it just, we didn't know when Vicky was diagnosed. We didn't even know there was lead in the water. And we didn't know there was lead in the water when Mike had his eye stroke. And we didn't know there was lead in the water when our dog was diagnosed. And the work that was done between Leanne and Mark Edwards and Melissa, I found myself in this very uncomfortable situation in Ann Arbor, alone. My husband hadn't gone with us, trying to explain to 5 doctors why a child that had no lead lines in March had them throughout her growth plate in June. And I had no idea where she got it from.
Because
Is
at
this,
that point we were still being silenced.
Yes,
is this your daughter here?
that is my eldest daughter, Stephanie. That's not the one. It's my daughter, Victoria.
Okay. How about this picture?
No, go back. The one in the homecoming, the blue dress,
The
Okay.
beautiful one in the homecoming dress.
that's my baby.
Here we are.
That's her.
So tell us the story of your daughter, Victoria.
She had some hip problems last year and was facing open hip surgery. And she had been through x-rays, hundreds of x-rays, 4 MRIs, 3 CAT scans, an MRA. This kid all but glue, she was glowing in the dark. Anyhow, she went down to have a CAT scan, a bone scan done just prior to surgery. And they found lead lines, her growth plate. That was the very first indication we had a problem. And as you can see in that picture, she's quite a bit taller than I am, but she's still growing. And now we found out 2.5, almost 3 weeks ago, I guess, her doctor did a ton of blood work on her to see how she was doing, just to check everything else. And Victoria now has some liver function issues. So
I would have to say that was the second worst phone call that I ever got.
it hit you hard, It hit us hard. I mean, and I felt so bad because Leanne kept apologizing. In no way was it your fault.
What were you apologizing for, Leanne?
Because we weren't heard sooner, because people didn't want to listen because we were being silenced. I mean, we knew February, as people, not as the state, we knew in February that I had extremely high lead. And we knew in March that all my kids showed exposure, and one of my children had lead poisoning. And it doesn't feel like it was good enough. That was before everything that Victoria went through.
You're saying that because your sons went through this, you made it your mission, I guess, in life to try to prevent it from happening to other mothers and other children in the community.
Well, I mean, that's why I didn't take the money when I was offered the money to basically go away. I mean, how do you sleep at night? knowing that you're doing this to people, and or me personally having the knowledge that this is happening and being called crazy and being told that there's not a problem. How do you just take money and walk away and say, sorry, suckers, you know, not my
Well,
problem?
and
That's not who I am. I couldn't live with myself.
and no, and Leanne and I are a lot alike. But here's the other thing, Leanne. Because Vicky had extensive hip damage, and this is where things went so south with her. The number one thing they tell you if you have bone or joint damage, and they kept saying it, God, they preached it. She's had it. She had at least 40 doctor's appointments, most in Ann Arbor, over this hip. The number one thing they told us, she has to drink water. She has to drink water. She has to drink more water. So we had a child kicking back 24 to 28 ounce containers times 6 or 8 per day.
Yep.
And this is her consequence.
But see, that's why I was apologizing to Keri, because had the message gotten out there sooner, had people taken it serious, you know, sooner than what they did, if we didn't have to jump through all the hoops and all the resistance and all the fighting. And I mean, I appreciate everything that Mark Edwards has done for the city, for my family personally, but it shouldn't have had to come to that.
Exactly.
And that's what I was apologizing for, because I do take it personally.
Can you take us back a year ago, January the 7th? You said yesterday was your anniversary. What did you do on that first day? When did you decide this is what I'm going to do?
Well, in end of November, beginning in December 2014 was when our water started coming through brown. And we couldn't figure out what was going on. And my son, my 14-year-old at the time, he was really sick. He had been out of school for almost a month. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. They were running all kinds of tests. I mean, we're talking multiple ultrasounds, CAT scan, a colonoscopy, and they couldn't figure it out.
Wow.
And then the water started coming through brown. So at that point, we quit drinking the water. We had contacted the city. And then in January, we had gotten a notice about the TTHMs, that we were in violation for that with the drinking water. So I attended my first city council meeting on that day. And
was that the January 26th city council meeting you're talking about?
Nope, that was the January 7th. And they were feeding us a bunch of fluff. They handed us an excerpt from part of a document from about TTHMs. They were evasive with questions, and we weren't getting any real answers. And I had asked the question about, well, you're talking about, you know, cold water. What happens with hot water? Right. And we were told that doesn't apply to this. So I went home and I started researching to see, you know, what happens with the hot water, and figured out that the vapors for showering, you absorb 4 times more than using it with cold drinking water. So then my thought process was, okay, well then let's make it apply. I started, you know, gathering up more research, and I printed out a health sheet with all, and a resource sheet with all of the websites that I had pinpointed, and I took them into the next city council meeting, and I said, here, I'm making it apply to drinking water. I use this water to put it in, you know, I put it in my pots to boil for spaghetti, and, you know, to make sweet tea, and, you know, it does apply to drinking water. It's not just showering. And at that point I was told we did nothing wrong. We followed the EPA standards for this. We only had to inform you of the cold drinking water part of it, and so that's all we did. We're doing bare minimum, basically. So that was very, very frustrating. The meeting you're talking about is the one where they switched it from the dome. It was supposed to be at City Hall. They switched it to the Dome so that nobody had to be sworn in to the statements they were making to the people. And to limit the amount of people that could attend, they were turning people away from that meeting because the Dome only holds, I think, 237 people, and City Hall holds a lot more.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's initially where it started. And from there was I started researching and getting reports from the city, raw data reports and operational reports, and comparing and contrasting and starting to trying to figure out like the chemical makeup and that kind of stuff, because I didn't know any of this stuff then. And it snowballed from there. So the fact that, in February I finally got a doctor's note. The doctor later recanted, but I finally got that doctor's note that said because of Gavin's compromised immune system that he had to drink bottled water. From that point, like when I handed that to the city and the note about Gavin breaking out so severely with rashes every time he came in contact with it, that's when the city, first started testing, and they were coming in weekly, and every time they came in, the highest they can test for iron is 3.3 in the city, and it was always above that. Always. I mean, every time they tested the water, it was, it was brown, it was high like that. And so we turned, that's when they finally said, okay, well, let's do additional testing. And I showed them, like, at that point too, like, there was sediment coming in my toilet tanks, like in the back of my toilet tanks, where it was, we were having it clog, and we had to keep replacing, I don't know exactly what it's called, but the flap kept like degrading. And so they started testing there, and they found traces of lead with that testing from the stuff they pulled from the toilet tank. So then they're like, okay, let's do the lead and copper test. And we did the first lead and copper test, and that's when I got the frantic phone call. So, I mean, essentially, from citizen standpoint, high lead was discovered in February of 2015. And here we are, January 2016, and we're finally calling a state of emergency. That's my problem. That's where I'm sorry. That's where it feels not good enough. To me. I take it personal because I didn't want anybody else to have to go through what my family was going through. So to know that that wasn't prevented, that's where it hits me on a personal level.
Well, and then the further upset with the FOIA documents that have come out are quote-unquote lead season.
Right.
June of 14. Never heard of lead season. I'm not sure that between like spring and summer or summer and fall, but they knew, meaning the MDEQ knew, children were being poisoned in 2014.
So did the health department.
Exactly. And yet, which takes Gavin out of it. If they had told us Gavin may be okay, Victoria and Mike may be okay, you've got 100,000 people.
But Keri, I mean, you got to think, we can't really say that either, though, because
no,
my kids weren't tested in 2014, and I'm like you. I fill a 32-ounce cup of water, and that thing gets filled, 10 times a day. I personally was drinking 1 gallon of water per day. So, and then my kids, that's all my kids drink. So at that point, it may have just been exposure to my kids because of how high the lead was.
Right.
Not poisoning. But it could have prevented the aftermath of everybody else. Do you understand what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
Victoria and Mike might not be in the position they're in if they would have done something in 2014.
Exactly. And they just let it ride. They wrote it off. They lied. They covered. And I'm sorry, it's a lie. This is not a misunderstanding. The smiley faces, why they know kids are being poisoned.
Hey, Keri, how do you feel when they say it was unintentional?
I literally vomited.
I know.
Literally. And when I saw the emails with the smiles,
oh yeah,
very nearly didn't hit the bathroom. I cannot believe they're trying to sell this as an oops and a mistake. It wasn't. To be a mistake means they didn't know it was happening. It is very clear they knew, they ignored it. Without you, Virginia Tech, all of you folks, we would have never known. Never. We'd have been left.
Keri, can you bring down your camera a little bit so we don't have so much headroom? There, a little bit more. You can cut off your hair a little bit. There you go.
I'm really short, so, you know.
Yeah, I know. We want to get your full frame in there. Why don't we? Can we change the subject a little bit?
Yes.
Josh Freeman.
Oh.
I got a right here. On the 29th of December, Councilman Josh Freeman resigned from the city council.
Yep.
Do you think you had anything to do with him resigning from the city council?
I hope so. I do. Am I certain? No. There's a lot of questions there's been for years. A lot of the public do not believe that Josh Freeman lives in Flint. We're going to leave it at that. He's already been in Davison. I do think Michael and myself standing up to him and not tolerating what he did to me, I hope it impacted his leaving. I absolutely do. I think losing his seat on the KWA impacted his leaving. I think that's the big piece missing. If he has no tolerance for me ever, we're fair. We're golden.
I just want to point out, to add to what Keri's saying here, repeatedly in multiple different conversations with Freeman about living in Flint and questioning him point blank. He did say he lives in Flint, which we did not believe. But he has said repeatedly his ex-wife, or that he is divorced.
Right.
He has said that so many times. And then in that article that you're showing, Jack, he states, I'm going to go spend time with my wife and my children.
Yes.
So
there's something very wrong about the Freeman story. But what got me, and the reason I did go forward with my quote-unquote public service announcement, no one in a position where they work for us. His whole irritation at me that night, I was not talking to him, had nothing to do with him. I was talking to Miss Henderson and Howard Croft, and asking them at what point was the MDEQ going to correct their testing. I was asking them questions because of Mike and Victoria and Jasmine, our dog. And all of a sudden, at the end of the table, he starts exploding. Oh my God, it's 8 o'clock. I have better things to do. I was not rude to him, didn't say anything I wanted to. All I said is, I'm very sorry. Is the issues with my family tying up your evening? I gathered my stuff to leave the building. I was done. And that's when he came at me in the hallway. And in this video, at the end of this, after I spoke against him that night, he said, well, you can FOIA the document. There's 10 feet of that wall the camera doesn't cover. It's exactly where we were.
he knew exactly what he was doing.
Absolutely. And Monica Galloway admitted from the city council seat she saw him come at me. I had another witness that came out and saw him right in my face using language that was unbelievable, telling me I didn't know anything about him. Who was I to judge him? That was wrong. I'm asking questions trying to save my family. I don't care what his timetable was. And I wasn't speaking to him. Had
Because
nothing to
if
do
it's
with him.
happening to his family, it would matter. But because it's happening to your family, he doesn't care.
Exactly.
He
Exactly.
he moved his family out of Flint before they switched the water. He had a heads up.
Yep. A lot of them had heads up. We didn't.
Exactly. And that's a problem.
Well, and I know, just like me, Leanne, you can't afford a $5,000 to $7,000 system. I can't either. I can't put reverse osmosis in my home. It's money I don't have.
But see, that's I have a problem with that. It's not that even if I had the money, which I don't, we shouldn't have to for a
No.
service that is being provided that we're paying high rates for.
And I agree with you, but I know there are certain members that knew beforehand, and certain elements of government, it has been confirmed, that they had their systems put into place prior to the switch.
Right.
We drank this water till June of this year when my dad came home because we can't afford to buy the bottled water. When we were forced to look at the cost the other day, because I had never thought of it, we're spending somewhere between our water bill, which fluctuates 120 to 240, and what we're having to purchase. This one family, we're spending between like $350 to $500 a month in water.
Mm-hmm.
That is just shy of a quarter of our income.
I can tell you, I don't know how you guys are buying your water, but we had to with our family because we could not financially afford to keep buying the individual bottles. It was not in the budget. We went and bought 40 gallons and then refilled them because we couldn't afford to do it any other way. And 10 of those gallons had to be kept aside every week to bathe my children because I refused to allow Gavin and Garrett, with them being so little, to be put in that water. I mean, the rest of us, we couldn't afford for the rest of us not to bathe in it. We
No.
had my husband bathed at work. My daughter, she would go shower from time to time at friends' houses. But, me, my older son, like we were kind of stuck. We didn't have a choice. It was a baby wipe bath twice a week, which that's another additional cost, and then a shower once a week. Lots of baby powder for the hair. I mean, I'm not trying to sound crappy, but that's what it was.
That's what we're still doing. We still are. We've got bath wipes we use.
You want to hear something crazy?
What?
We're here in Virginia. My kids are here in Virginia. They're out of the water, and I still can't bring myself to bathe them normally.
That's not crazy.
They still get baby white baths and bathe once a week, and we still drink bottled water because we can't bring ourselves not to.
I don't blame you. We've got Victoria, who in Ann Arbor, and she was very thirsty. And there's water fountains everywhere, and this was just Tuesday. And I told her, honey, go ahead and get a drink. She looked at me like, no. And
like
I said, yeah. And I said, sweetheart, we're in Ann Arbor. We're 70 miles from Flint. I explained it all. She looked at me and said, never again.
Exactly.
Never. So
yeah, they're 4. And if anybody hands them something to drink, Mommy, is this good water? Is this bad water? Mommy, is this okay? Can we drink this? They're 4 years old.
yeah, there's a lot of that. Mike's terrified of the shower. He's half blind. I've come out of the shower. We set our alarms for 5 minutes per shower. I don't even know if I want to admit this. No more than twice a week. in our home, and you're talking 3 women, so there you go. And 2 of them, 15 and 20, it's a terrible age to do this. But I was in the shower one day for 12 minutes. I had a panic attack so bad, I thought I was going to wind up in the hospital. And that's from taking a shower. Vicky's had panic attacks. Mike has been so full of fear. He is terrified because he's lost half of the vision in his right eye. He doesn't have a lot left to give. He would like to have some eyesight. And his blood pressure yesterday, his heart rate's fine as usual. His blood pressure was 178 over 120.
And he's on what? Like he's on like 8 pills a day or something?
8 pills a day, 3 types of medication. And is it better than the 240 over 140? Is it better than the 290 over 160? Yeah, it is better. Is it good? No way. But they can't control his blood pressure, which once he was tested for lead, we went, oh, because that is a sign in adults. The cardiologist, they've done echocardiograms, he's been through EKGs, he's done a stress test. There's nothing wrong with his heart. There is no other reason for his blood pressure to have done this. So, go ahead.
I was wondering if you could talk about the forgotten members of the community, those that aren't below the ages of 6.
It's all of us. I have had people say, well, unless you're under the age of 6 or over 70, you're fine. And we had a very hard time initially when Mike was injured. I'm sorry, not injured, poisoned. And when Victoria was poisoned, because she's 16, he was 44 when he lost his vision. And a lot of people are like, well, they shouldn't have trouble. The problem is lead doesn't stop and check how old you are. It doesn't care how much money you have. So what we're truly dealing with, in my opinion, in Flint, is 100,000 residents of all ages, even healthy people, that have not only been exposed, but we don't know how many are affected. This is citywide. And initially, I couldn't get anyone, even at City Hall, to consider Mike or Victoria, certainly not the press, because I was told they're too old. We're only looking for little kids. It could be something else. It doesn't really matter. It's an ISO. And I was actually told it doesn't matter about my 40.
What did I tell you when you called me with that?
You said everybody matters. And you told me we will get this out there. You promised me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's out. And listen, the infants on a very personal level, I take very hard. Very hard. I don't think attention should be taken from the kids at all. I'm not trying to divert attention from the kids or the elderly or those with immune issues. I couldn't do that and live with myself.
Right.
All I'm trying to say is, folks, pay attention.
It's bigger. It's bigger than the scope they're giving.
It's huge. It is huge. I mean, Victoria's 16, almost 16. We don't know. We know Steph and I still have blood lead levels, or did, when 90 days after we quit drinking the water. I assume this isn't good for us either. But right now, the focus has been the two that are so damaged. That's what I have to do right now. I have to keep Mike up. We've got, we had 1 week. We had 9 appointments in 4 days between him and Victoria. One specialist after another. He's seeing a cardiologist. He's seeing 2 types of eye doctors. And they flat told us his vision will never come back. It is gone. And it's because he had an eye stroke. His blood pressure got so high, it blew the two main arteries in his eye. It doesn't come back. It's gone. So my focus in this whole thing, and I admit, and I have no trouble admitting it, I am so late to the game. It's sad. I was not there in the beginning with Leanne and Melissa. But we had the hip thing going on with Vic. We were waiting for open hip surgery on a 15-year-old, which thank God didn't have to happen. But we were so tied up with that, and that's from an auto accident, that had to be taken care of. The minute I was free from them, seriously, I was right there with them. And I've done everything I can to stay in them. But no, I'm not one of the original, and I admit that freely. I'm
You
a
don't
latecomer.
have to be one of the originals to be affected and to be fighting.
We all have to fight.
That's what I'm saying. You don't apologize for, life. Life happens.
I know.
And look at what's happened so far.
Yeah. And that's the hard part. It's just the hard part. Telling Vic, we don't know. Are you going to have kids? How bad is your liver? And that's the other thing. Vic and I are the wrong blood type. As her mom, I would give that child every organ I have. I can't even do that. There's no way. So the sense of helplessness is off the charts. So like Leanne, I speak out, I fight, I protest, because at least then I'm doing something.
It sounds like you're also giving back. You're driving a van full of water to shut-ins. You're helping the disadvantaged that might be more disadvantaged than yourself. That might be more damaged than yourself.
Yes.
And that doesn't take away from the damage that you have and your family has.
And thank you for that. My kids are, I don't know, I have the most compassionate children. There's always someone that's worse than you. There's always someone that has less than you. If we can go out, we have seen kids. This was the saddest one. We went to a house to deliver water, and there were 3 kids there, 7. I think they were 7, 9, 11. I apologize. It was like last September. Mom came down to get the water out of this apartment. These kids, you would have thought it was Christmas morning, and it was bottles. It was a case of water. So yes, we're trying to help others. It is the most wonderful feeling in the world. And we'll keep doing it.
And I'm going to keep researching and calling people out. And by the way, Jack, when we're done here today, me and you need to have some conversation because I got some paperwork.
Excellent.
Keri's helping with that too. She's gonna help with making sure it's out there and being heard as well.
And
But
I've always been more of a background kind of person, and I was good with that on purpose. But right now, all the citizens of Flint have had is each other. Some of the colleges outside of Flint, the teachers' unions outside of Flint, they've donated water. Don't get me wrong. But on the base, we're helping each other. The government, the state, the feds, no one is sending us water to help. We're helping each other, which is why we do distribute. Somebody needs to reach these people. We realized, and you were part of that conversation, weren't you, Lee? The one
yes.
that took place like at 4 in the morning, when we suddenly decided, wait a minute, we have all these people that aren't getting water.
Mhm.
And it was 5 people, and it took off from there. And so we delivered water. Right now, we have to look out for each other. So we are.
You know how many times I've heard that people have run out of water, so they have no choice. They have no choice but to drink what's coming through their taps because they cannot financially afford
Yep.
to go and get water. And speaking of, remind me when we get off of here, there's a name and number I need to give you on that. So, but that's that you don't have a choice.
No. And we ran into parents who their kids are still eating food cooked with water because you cannot get on a bus with 2 or 3 cases, and I met this saddest thing ever. 2 or 3 cases of water and a couple kids in tow, and then walk it back to your house. There is such a huge portion of this community still being overlooked.
Yes.
So, to answer your question, Jack, we've got a vehicle. If we can help, we help. That's all there is to it.
Well, there's one of the ladies that I was helping with before, and she's back without a car now. So, she I got a message that she was drinking the water and it made her sick, and so.
And it will. Internally, externally, I have seen things within my husband and kids I have never seen before. And the
Like the gastrointestinal stuff, like the upset stomach and
chronic. And
yep.
Vicky has liver pain. She's 15. I know she's my daughter. I can honestly say she's never had a drink. She does not do drugs. She has liver pain. Really abnormal at 15. She's not old enough, even if she was drinking. One of the doctors said she's not even old enough to have cirrhosis from alcoholism. But the kid has never had a drink. And you know her, Lee. This is not her set of things to do. But
I know.
She won't be able to anyhow. But she didn't care. But we've watched her rub her liver for about 8 weeks now. And she just kept seeing it sore, sore, sore. I thought it was her ribs. Never in a zillion years would I have thought, oh, my almost 16-year-old having liver pain. Seriously? Never crossed my mind. But that's what it is.
You have a pet, Keri.
Yes.
How is your pets doing? Or your pet?
We have several pets. We know a lot of people that have buried several. We only have one that even qualifies for testing. because she's old. In February of 15, her liver function, kidney function, everything functioned. She was 13. Was that of a young dog. She was healthy as not, doing very well. And I mean, when I say liver function, it was 230, which is literally that of a young dog. I had her into the vet in August, early August. I had them test her. Got a phone call 7:15 the next morning. Her liver function is now over 1200. She is in the final stages of liver disease. Her eyes have started turning yellow, and they can't fix it. The other animals we have, my one daughter called to see about testing a cat, any cat, pick a cat, and was told they don't qualify for geriatric testing. They're too young. And they don't do that because they just don't do that, even if you request it. The only way they can test them for lead poisoning is to remove a huge piece of an organ, preferably the liver and heart. The animal cannot live that way. So it's only at necropsy after death. So all they could tell us is watch for neurological disorder. They start twitching. They start having difficulty walking. And within about 3 days, they'll be dead. After that, we can test them. But when we found out about the lead in water, I called our vet back. We've had a great working relationship for years. But our last old dog was 14. We had him his whole life. And these have been our vets. And I called him back, and I just asked him very open-ended, is there anything else that could have caused Jasmine's liver failure? And I left it there. It said not another word. And he said, no, absolutely not. He said, Keri, you're talking about heavy metals like lead and copper and aluminum. And they just went, oh, my God, you're in Flint. And all I could say is, I'm so sorry. So at that point, they gave her less than 6 months to live. And they can't help her. There's nothing to be done.
Who pays for these tests?
We
Does
do.
is it the city, the state? They haven't set up a fund.
No.
If you're 6 years or younger, are your tests paid for by the city or the state?
I know they were offering free testing for little kids, but it's finger prick test. Michael alone has over $500 in medical bills. Jasmine, well, we're getting close. Vets are expensive. No one has paid a cent but us. No one's offered to help us. No, we're totally abandoned. It's good luck. The trips back and forth to Ann Arbor, on us. Everything is on us. And that's one thing I believe that's got to be handled. Somebody needs to put together a fund to take care of every single person exposed to or poisoned by the lead that was in our water. This is not what Flint did. This is what was done to us.
I'm sorry that I wasn't paying fully attention to that. I'm going to admit I was not. Hashtag Flint did an interview with Josh Freeman.
And how
And
did that go?
and it keeps, like, I keep getting alerts, different people, and I want to vomit.
They From him or?
Yes. Hashtag Flint asks, you said that public service is in your blood. Should we expect to see you run for anything in the near future? I will run for public office. It's very satisfying helping literally hundreds of people resolve an issue that you're having within a city. Also, I think that there are many opportunities for local units of government to work together to find efficiencies and cost reductions in offering everyday services. I've seen the benefits firsthand and would like to work towards making that happen. What was the most valuable lesson you learned while serving Flint?
Oh, don't even say it.
Being honest in what you tell people, and they will appreciate far more than promising the moon when reality does not make that possible. People may not agree with your position and may not like the situation, but they will appreciate that you're being honest with them. Also, you can't be everything to everyone. Don't commit yourself to something if you aren't going to be able to perform. Biggest surprise, the scope of problems the city faces. I knew there was going to be problems, but I thought with tough decisions they would be fixed. During my time in office, our revenue declined at such a rapid rate that no matter what tough decision we made, they weren't going to be tough enough to deal with problems that we faced.
Hashtag Flint's going to have you on the show, too, aren't they, Keri?
Yes.
I'm surprised that they would even have Josh Freeman on.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry not to interrupt, but I just...
Hashtag covers everything.
Right.
Both sides, every side, all sides. They're very, very open. I would have asked him the same questions. Sometimes you give somebody enough rope to just hang themselves. In my opinion.
I don't understand how he couldn't burst into flames whilst these things were coming out of his mouth. I'm sorry.
I don't.
Was he an honest guy?
Oh,
as a council person?
So honest that his wife is now his wife again instead of his ex-wife.
He was not. Here's the problem. Not only was he so far from honest, he was the least compassionate, caring, decent, anything that resembled human person on that council. I'll say it to his face.
I've said it to his face. I said it at the library.
Yes. Do you remember, were you there that one night? No, I don't think you were. This woman stood up out of the blue. I don't even know who she was. She was the last speaker that night. And she looked at him and said, "Sir, do you need a hug or something? Because you are always so mean, so rude, so unprofessional." And that night, Jack, that I was asking about my family and, were they actually using the biofilm correctly? Was the MDQ actually testing correctly? And lo and behold, I irritated him holding up his evening. That very same night, he's sitting at the table, at the other end of the table, reading his voicemail, reading text messages, laughing out loud, tapping people and pulling their attention to whatever he thought was funny at the moment.
Do you want to know when I realized that he was a waste of my time?
When he was reading?
Serious waste of my time? They did that meeting at the library where they were introducing Natasha Henderson with Mayor Walling and Josh Freeman. And that's when I spoke with Mayor Walling afterwards about the lead levels coming into my home. And Josh Freeman had to put his 2 cents into that. And he was like, "You're making a big deal out of nothing. You're causing panic for no reason. I had my house tested and my lead's at 100 and that's acceptable levels." And I looked at him and I said, "Excuse me." I said, "What was your levels at?" He said, 100. And I said, "Mr. Freeman, if your levels are at 100, you might want to get checked for lead." "No, that's an acceptable level." And I said, "No, Josh, I'm sorry, it's not. Mine's 104. My first one was 104. And I got a panic phone call from the city. So if you're at 100, you've got serious problems.
Yes, you do.
Well, I'll check it when I get home and I'll let you know. And I said, well, maybe you should educate yourself also on what is acceptable and not acceptable when it comes to these things before you decide to speak to people and tell them they're causing a panic over nothing. And so he was supposed to, I gave him my email address. He was supposed to email me a copy of his report. He did not follow through, so I started emailing him politely, asking him for a copy of it. And no, his level was at like 1.
100.
Yeah, no difference. And at that point, I'm like, this guy knows nothing, and he's not going to be of any service to me, and he doesn't care to know because, at least Walling actually pretended to be concerned. I mean,
Yeah.
at least he pretended to, care just a little bit, just, gave a shit just a little bit. But, Freeman was just totally just, no, you're causing a panic over nothing. And it was like, if
And
these,
that was
if this was your child, if this was your house and your children were being exposed to this, would that be your reaction? I don't think so. Oh, wait, that's right. You moved your kids out of the city.
and his parting shot to the city. Holy crap, that was terrible. We've moved him out there to Davidson because they have better schools, just opportunities they can't get here in Flint. This is a Flint City Councilman saying zero good about this city. Nothing. So, no. And all I've seen him do is downplay, downgrade, rude. Oh, Lord, if there's another word for it, I can't even think of it. The man is just cruel. So,
Oh, I can't wait to see what office he runs for next.
I don't think Davidson will have him. His position, his personality, his behavior precedes him. And it should.
Oh,
We may be on the protest trail again.
there you go.
And I will. There's no way. There's no way. And the only reason he came at me is I'm 4'8". Josh Freeman is maybe 5'5". I will tell you the night Mike and I showed up, and Mike is 6 foot tall, the look on his face was incredible, and he never looked back up from the table. He wouldn't even look at Mike. He's like, "Poop," and I'm like, "Well, be careful who you mess with." And I've never hidden I'm married. We've been married 24 years. I don't hide that. I'm very loud about it. And actually, in that video clip, you can see Mike back behind me there. And he spoke that night, and we got him to stay calm, and he did get to come home, so that was good.
There he is.
There he is. He was, wow, angry.
He didn't say much.
No, very succinct and to the point.
Very much to the point.
Yeah. He's very protective of his wife and kids. Very. And when I finally calmed down and could tell him about Vicky's liver, he lost it. He has lost it. Who do I go after? How do I take care of this? Who needs to be charged? He and I handle things different. I cry a lot. He's ready to take on the world. And so am I.
You don't cry alone.
No, I don't. No.
What would you say to mothers of Flint that have not picked up filters yet, that haven't gotten the bottled water.
Get it.
You've got to. You've got to.
But see,
No.
that's part of the problem, though. Like, there are mothers who don't know. There's still people that don't know. I understand it's a state of emergency now. I don't know if it's still as bad as it was as far as people not knowing, but there were still people who, like, they're there for, like, Job Corps. They, they've been in the city for a month or two or whatever, and they don't have smartphones. They don't have internet. They spend their time going from Job Corps to taking care of their kids. So there are still people that, last month did not know that there's lead in the water because they're not from around there. I mean, I hope now that's different.
I don't know. And my other thing is, too, there's people that may know there's lead in the water. However, all the giveaways are done during the 9 to 5 hours. You're missing a huge group of working population. Listen, in my opinion, the filters help. It's better than nothing. We really work more off of our zero water pitcher.
You know what, Keri? I have to disagree with you on just partially. The filters would be enough if they weren't still charging insane amounts for the water.
Exactly. I am so tired of that.
It is a Band-Aid fix. You hand a filter for a kitchen sink, but it's shower in it and still come in contact with it and still pay a $200 water bill. No,
Right.
That is unacceptable.
And I mean, obviously here we're not even depending on the filter because there's already so much damage.
Right.
I'm done playing craps with Mike and Vicky. But I was told, and it was somebody being nice to me, well, you can get a filter for your shower. It's only $60 to $100. Well, hold on. I'll only write a check. I mean, you're talking among the $200 water bill, plus all the extra water. We can't afford to bathe in water. I mean, you can't bathe adults in water. You just can't.
Well, I mean, you could if you could financially afford to do it, but
Right.
I know for 2 4-year-olds taking a bath together, it was 10 gallons heated on the stove. And it's a dance, too. It's not even just like you heat it up and dump it in. It's like you start out heating it up. You have to continue to heat it up. And depending on the weather outside, if it's cold, if it's hot, if it's if it's great temperature, you have to watch because you can get it too hot, you can get it too cold. Like there's all these variables to it. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour from start to finish with the boiling process to get that stuff in there. That's 10 gallons, barely filling a tub for 2 4-year-olds. So, I mean, think about how many gallons that would be per adult.
Exactly. And then the other issue is our home, for example, and it's been tested, we still have high TTHMs. We don't dare boil the crap.
Right.
And we're not alone. See, and that's the other thing that's kind of fallen off the radar. Oh, the TTHMs resolved. No, it didn't.
I was told today, I actually, when I was talking with Wayne State, that majority of the TTHM levels are down, but there are still places, people's residents in the home, I think it was 8 or 10 people that are out of compliance still.
So,
And it's the winter months, so it's cold, so it's not going to be the issue it was. Come May, June, July, August, September, what's it going to look like then?
exactly. And I'm not going to get in the shower, and usually I take excessively hot showers. There's no way.
And I know when I talked with Wayne State, when the city tested my house July 9th of 2015, and they did the test twice because the first test came back negative for chlorine. No chlorine. 0. Okay? They did it again because they're like, that can't be right. So they did it again, and it still came back 0. And then I did the 30-day test with Mark Edwards, where I tested every day with it, and it still came back from August to September, 0.
Wow.
No chlorine. Okay? And then when I spoke with Wayne State this morning, it was, there's still a concern because there's, your house is only barely any chlorine, like almost 0. Like, not really registering.
Right now we have so much, it's a swimming pool again. Seriously. And this is what I don't get. Just like the biofilm they're adding, the phosphates they're adding for the biofilm. For some reason, Flint seems to work on 1 or 2 bases. All or nothing. They don't need to be, the water group sat there, Mark Edwards on the phone, told them adding more phosphates does not build the biofilm up any faster. And there can be danger to having too much in. Don't do it. They're adding more, just like the chlorine. They do a chlorine burn. We all get TTHMs, so what do? Then they stop using chlorine. I don't understand why.
Well, that part they do so they can be in compliance.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
That part is done intentionally so they can be in compliance, so they're not getting hit with a violation when they do the chlorine burn.
And that's sickening.
And it doesn't represent what's truly out there.
Yeah, and it's our health. I don't understand it. They've been told a zillion times. Citizens are still saying it. We're still saying at city council meetings. Adding the phosphate is not a good idea. Here's the science and research behind it. Your own water board said don't do it. And yet they're saying, but it's going to help. No, it's not. You can't rebuild the biofilm faster than a set amount. Here's my thing. They just spent millions on that new special machine for biofilm. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
The one they were using all along for corrosion control that arrived a month ago? That one. It's an excuse to use it. Well, we got it. Now we have to use it, but it's not helping anything. And we don't need the more phosphates. It doesn't help. But you can't tell them anything. When they totally blew off Mark Edwards and Dr. Hannah, seriously, where do you go from that? They don't listen to the absolute experts. We citizens are lucky we can draw air alone. We're so stupid. So no, they're not going to listen to us. Is it our friend Josh again?
No, my daughter's got to go to work soon.
Can you talk about, before we go, can you talk a little bit about your new mayor, the first female mayor of Flint, Keri Webber? And Keri, you supported her. Here you're wearing her shirt at the city council meeting. What does Keri Webber do to the situation now?
She's been amazing. She has been amazing. She ran on a platform that we needed a state of emergency. We know a lot of pressure was put on our former mayor to call a state of emergency, and he was not willing to do that. Everything Karen spoke of doing, and that's the other thing, never campaigned before this year ever, 45, never got close to it, had no interest. And actually the way I met Karen, I stopped by her office to talk to her about a mom that was just mom to mom. We had just gone through Mike and Vic. I was overwhelmed. I went to speak to her as a person. And before I left, I signed up for her campaign. she is headed the right way with us. She's getting us the help we need. She's not taking the advice of no, you shouldn't ask for a state of emergency. She even said it yesterday in an interview. She has said all along, let them tell us no. Um, Her degree in psychology, I think, is really important right now because there are so many people so damaged. But everything I've seen so far, and I know she and I aren't always going to agree, and I don't expect that. But when it comes to the water, um, man, she's been all over it since day one. All over it. She knows what's going on. But she was caught in the same testing too, right, Leanne?
Yes. Well,
Yep.
I mean, at first, I mean, when she first got involved in it, it was kind of like the rest of us, like I'll show you mine if you show me your kind of thing. Like she
Right.
didn't want to jump on board on something and not, have it be, the state and the city did a really good job of telling everybody we were crazy, we were stupid, we were liars. There was nothing to this. There was nothing happening, and that, so everybody kind of backed off. And Karen didn't do that. It was more of a, okay, tell me from your guys' perspective what's going on. Show me, why you're saying this, and then, got behind us when it came to the water stuff. She participated with the Virginia Tech testing. When we
That's,
did,
and I apologize, that's what I meant.
yeah, she participated with that testing. Um, Still waiting to hear back from the information I gave her when I was talking to Mark about having Virginia Tech do the additional testing, independent testing for the city this next round. I haven't heard back. Like, I called and left a message last night, hoping to hear something back, sometime today or tomorrow. So one of the things that we did not get a chance to discuss on here today was one of the things that we came on here for.
Yeah.
So, can you guys give me about 2 minutes?
Do you want to talk about it another time? I mean, I know your time is limited here. We can pick that up next week, in 2 weeks. We don't have to do it all today. Give people something to look forward to.
Okay, well, we can pick it up. Keri, can you do it next week?
I can.
Okay.
Or if not, we can just work it around your schedule. It could be next week, 2 weeks. I mean, there's a lot of stories in Flint.
Yes,
There's a lot of pain and suffering in Flint that you don't really get with the mainstream news coverage. They give you 30 seconds, and then
exactly.
they keep rehashing the story over and over and over again, but they keep leaving out things.
Right. There's certain parts, like you can say it, I can't tell you how many interviews I've done where, I've said people's names and who was involved or thanked the people who did whatever, and all of it gets cut out. They take this little 30-second or 15-second blurb out of, 45 minutes, and it's like, well, that kind of sucked. Not that I don't appreciate them interviewing, but, put the names out there. Call the people out that need to be called out on this.
But
Yeah.
they have a format. That format is, you're going to give you 2 minutes, and they have a whole formula on how they do it, and you just get plugged in there, and they're looking for the sensationalism, and they all are going along to get along. If the Associated Press puts out something, they all kind of go along with that Associated Press story.
Right.
They're not really doing their due diligence in terms of a Kurt Guyette actually boots on the ground to find out, knocking on your door to find out what is it like to be in your household.
Right.
They went to Melissa May's house to basically drag out her trash and say, here's her bottled water, and they threw it on the front pavement. And they said they don't have recycling here. I mean, again, it's all kind of tongue-in-cheek for kind of sensationalism.
Yeah.
Right. And on that, Keri, you were amazing this morning. I'm so glad you were able to be on there today and to do that today.
Thank you.
You're talking about MSNBC, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And my whole thing, again, and I know I say it all the time, this isn't the Weber show. This is the Flint show.
Oh, I know it is. I know it is.
This is,
I'm glad that they're paying. I'm not that I'm not for the children, because I've been
yes,
advocating for the children since day one with what happened with Gavin. But it's also, I'm thankful that it is getting out there that it's everybody. I mean,
yes,
the children are the most affected by it, but we can't forget about everybody else.
that's right. And especially right now, and I guess too, I see it's very important, is as these documents move to Washington now, it's 100,000 people.
Right.
Plus, give or take whatever got missed in the census. Okay. Everybody's been exposed.
Right.
Now, some people, me included, drink less water. My exposure may be less than theirs. Okay, it doesn't appear that way, but I'm just saying, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, but none of us are going to walk away from this going, wow, dodge that bullet.
Right.
I know a few people that from the minute they said we're going to the Flint River, said I'm done, I'm not drinking it.
Yeah,
That's a handful of people.
you have people like me who had this inexpensive aesthetics filter, which, I mean, I didn't know the difference between filters back then that I do now. But, we had this inexpensive, whole house filter that we had installed when we bought the house, because the house had no plumbing. So we figured, why not? And, when they said they were switching to the Flint River, it was like, okay, well, we've got a filter. So, we're okay. And no, we weren't.
No. No.
We absolutely 100% were not. And see, everybody mistakes that filter as a carbon filter. That's the same thing Wayne State said to me today. And I'm like, it's not a carbon filter. It is a inexpensive filter. You buy it in a 2-pack for $15 at Lowe's. All it does is sediments. That's it.
Yeah. We probably have a better filter in the turtle tank. I'm not even, because
right. That's what I mean. Like, it wasn't anything. I think we spent like $50 for it when we were putting the plumbing in. It's not like it's some great big, it's going to, I mean, granted, Mark said it probably saved our lives because of the bigger particles that it was catching when it was running into the house. And the lead, it did catch some of the lead, but essentially, we still got poisoned.
It wasn't a lead filter, but
right.
Like you said, none of us knew. In my case, I didn't know 8 months ago what I know now about water.
Right.
My God, your knowledge surpasses mine, because you're my go-to if I'm like, hang on, I don't know, but I know how to find out. This is not a subject I ever wanted to know. I'll be that honest. I never sat here and thought, I'm going to study water next week. No, this was not on my bucket list. But sometimes you have to learn to protect yourself.
Right.
That's what we've done.
Yes, it is.
All you can do.
And I mean, that's the thing. Like, people, they portray us as victims, and we were victimized, but we are not victims. We are fighters.
Yes, we are.
Victims take it lying. Victims don't get back up and fight it. We're fighting it. So there's a difference.
You were abused.
Yes.
And now your abuser is coming in and say they're going to make it all right.
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot for them to make it all right.
We are going to make sure it's made right. Not quite the same idea he has.
With that, we're going to leave it. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Whoops. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you. We'll see you next time. We're going to go offline, but we can